Hey guys, Problem1701 here, and today we are going to be ranking Dalek stories. Now, this is going to be a two-part series. This will be part one, where I'm ranking my favorite Dalek stories in classic and modern Doctor Who from worst to best. Now, I haven't seen every Dalek story. There are a few from the 60s I haven't seen. I've only seen The Daleks and Power of the Daleks, so I haven't seen The Dalek Invasion of Earth, The Chase, Dalek's Master Plan, obviously, or Evil of the Daleks, obviously. But I've seen all of the others, so I believe I had 22 listed on this, although for some reason when I write it out, I have a listing for 23. I'm not quite sure why. I do know Day of the Daleks will appear on this list twice, because I will be ranking the original version of Day of the Daleks and the special edition of Day of the Daleks separately, simply because the the special effects are so extensive. The new effects are so extensive. I do feel like they deserve their own separate ranking. So I have 23 to get to, even though I swear it's only supposed to be 22. So if for some reason something's on here twice, I'm sure you guys will let me know. I couldn't figure out where I might have made a mistake at. So we're going to start at 23, which is the Witch's Familiar and the Magician's Apprentice. I don't really care for this one. There's some really good scenes between Capaldi and Davros that I like. I think it's really touching when they're having their conversations in part two. But it kind of gets crapped on at the end when it turns out it was all a ruse by Davros. This really is another one of those situations where Moffat kind of ruins an episode with his ending. Kind of like Listen. Where the ending just kind of ruins it all for me. Part one's alright. I like some of the interactions between Clara and Missy, but the whole Doctor riding in on a tank playing a guitar thing, I think it's really stupid. I've never really been a fan of the Doctor playing the guitar with the sunglasses on, plus I hate the sonic sunglasses. I don't know, episode 1 didn't do much for me. I did like the reveal at the end of part 1 that they're on Skaro. It was a nice little reveal. I love seeing the old footage of Tom Baker making his if someone showed you a child who would grow up to kill millions of people, could you then kill that child? It's a nice little touch. I do like the very beginning scene of Davros as a child, that turning out to be Davros. That was a great opener, I'll give it that. And again, the Tom Baker kind of callback to that, tying that in. But other than that, it's not really great. I mostly just like the interaction between Davros and Capaldi. That was pretty good, but it's not good. Next on the list is the Daleks in Manhattan two-parter, an evolution of the Daleks. I used to like this one more. I used to say that it was underrated. I used to think it was underrated because there is some good stuff going on here. I like Dalek Sec in his hybrid form. I like when he's talking to the Doctor about, your creator, thought that was the best thing, getting rid of emotions. And he's like, he was wrong. He was what? I like Dalek Sec kind of coming around saying, the emotions make us less. And seeing him and the Doctor kind of bond a little. The whole bit about the Time Lord DNA getting in simply because he was struck by the lightning, he was holding onto the lightning rod when it got struck is really weird. Again, this one, it's definitely watchable. But I don't go back to it much anymore. I used to, though. Back during Tennant's era, I used to go back and watch this one quite a bit. I love that look on his face when he first realizes that the origin of that brain he's looking at is Skaro, and he's like, Skaro. But I don't really go back to it much these days. It is kind of a ho-hum story, to be honest. Next on the list is Resolution of the Daleks, or just Resolution, I guess it's called. I like the fact that they kind of try to go back to making it just one Dalek and making it threatening, kind of like Dalek is. Because there is something about when there's only one of them that can make it so terrifying and show just how dangerous one Dalek can be. I like that they do explain this is a different type of Dalek, a recon Dalek, so it kind of explains why it can puppeteer people, which is a neat little change. That's not something I would want to see often, but just as a one-off, I didn't mind it. It did add a nice fear factor to the episode. And then I do love the scene when the Dalek, when he's in his armor and he's just waxing the army. And he stops their big cannon fire with his little missile, and I don't know. That was a pretty cool scene, I'll give it that. The interaction between the Doctor and the Dalek when the Doctor first reveals that she's the Doctor, that's a pretty cool little scene. Just ultimately, The sum does, the parts are not. The parts are greater than the sum. Just overall, there are parts holding this one down. The bit with Ryan and his dad doesn't work for me. The fact they melt down his armor with the microwave things doesn't work for me. It's fun, and I like what it attempted to do, but it just doesn't quite work out. It's definitely not as good as Dalek, for sure. Next on the list is the Daleks, the original story, the second story of Doctor Who. I know some people rank this one higher simply because it's the first story with the Daleks, but I don't give it a pass for that. I think it's too long. I think 7 parts is way too long. I think it drags. The Dalek voices are a little hard to go back and watch now because they're definitely not as good as stuff that would come later. I do like the fact they still have that retro look where the eye grows and shrinks. I kind of hate that went away in Classic Who, and I'm glad they brought it back in Modern Who. I've always liked when their eye stalks actually move like that. But yeah, I mean, I get, I respect it for what it did historically, but I just don't find myself wanting to go back and want to watch it. I need to go back and watch it sometime, I really do. But I don't find it as interesting as a lot of people seem to. Next on the list is Into the Dalek, and to be fair, going back and thinking about it, this one probably needs to be higher. But I'm not the biggest fan of Series 8. Not the biggest fan of Series 8 Capaldi. I like the idea of a Dalek being good and the Doctor having to figure out why a Dalek would be good. And then I like the fact that the Dalek is so mesmerized by the Doctor's hatred of the Daleks that it makes him hate the Daleks. That's pretty cool. And I do like the scene when he's just running around killing all the Daleks. Boom, 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 boom. Rapid fire Dalek extermination. Because, it used to be like in Classic Who and even in Modern Who, you had a bit of a chance if you're up against the Daleks that you can get away. Because it takes them a second to fire. It's like boom, boom, boom. In that time you can try to at least get away. Man, this Dalek's got a rapid fire machine gun. Boom, 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 boom. Boy, I'm like, man. The people fighting the classic Daleks don't know how lucky they had it. They had at least a little bit of time between shots. I don't know. I think that scene's pretty cool. Next on the list is the original version of Day of the Daleks. Again, I'll be ranking the special edition of it later in the list. But this is the original version because the story is very good. The story here is really, really good. The execution just doesn't quite live up to it in the original version. One, the Dalek voices are awful. Probably the worst Dalek voices we've ever had. They're bad. Some of the effects don't work. Like anytime the humans or people use a gun and it's just when the screen flashes white, doesn't really work for me. I never really cared for that flash of white. There's some other scenes with technical stuff, like when the Daleks are speaking to their lead human guy and the way the camera changes in one spot looks weird. Yeah, just the effects was really the only thing holding this one back. And if there wasn't a special edition, this version of it would probably be higher still, just because the story is so good. But having seen both versions and the special edition just being the only one I'll watch these days, that's the only reason this one sits so low. Next on the list is Planet of the Daleks, and I don't like this one as much as most people seem to. A lot of people seem to think Planet of the Daleks is the best Pertwee Dalek story. I think it's my least favorite overall. I just don't care for it. I find it uninteresting. I find it the weakest story of season 10, to be honest. And it's also the only one where I think I'd rather watch the original version than the special effects. The special edition version that's on the season 10 box set doesn't really do much to really help it, in my opinion. I think the CGI ship looks worse than the regular ship. So I can watch either version. The story doesn't really work for me. The whole Dalek being invisible thing's never really utilized. You have that one shock at the end of like the first episode when he finds the dead invisible Dalek, to which the original effect looks better than the new CGI effect. Way better. Other than that idea's kind of dropped in favor of the virus they're trying to make. Yeah, I just don't really care for it. It's not bad. It's watchable, but I don't like it as much as most people seem to. Next on the list is Asylum of the Daleks. This is a very flawed story. There's a lot of issues with it, but I still like it. First off, the Daleks having an asylum in the first place doesn't really make any sense. It seems very un-Dalek-like. You figure if a Dalek was defective, they'd just kill it and exterminate. I mean, these people are so prejudiced, they exterminate, anybody that's just not exactly like them, as you see in Remembrance and in Revolution of the Daleks. Why would they waste the time and resources building an asylum for them if they're no longer any use to the Daleks? It doesn't make sense. And then the whole Amy and Rory about to split up and divorce thing feels forced. Doesn't make any sense. It's like it's there just so we can see the Doctor get them back together. Doesn't make a lot of sense there. I do like Clara in this one. This version of Clara Oswin, I actually do like. I like her banter with Rory. I like her banter with Matt Smith's Doctor. I really would have liked to have had more of this version of Clara. I like her wit a lot. I would have liked to have seen that more with regular Clara. The little twist with her at the end, I didn't see coming. Thought it was really well done. Really liked it. Of course, the whole thing at the end with the Daleks forgetting the Doctor is stupid. I'm glad they kind of got rid of that really quickly. So yeah, it's a very flawed episode that doesn't make sense, but I still find it fun. There's a lot of things I enjoy about it. I like that. Who took care of all the Daleks? He's just like, who do you think? So it's one of those, like I said, a lot of issues, but I still enjoy watching it. It's fun. That's the best way to sum it up. It's fun. Next on the list is Journey's End and Stolen Earth. I used to like this one a lot more. This is actually my friend Ian's favorite Dalek story and favorite Doctor Who story, actually. He loves this two-parter. I like it. It's good. I just think it's too big. It's too much. Russell T Davies, it seemed like every season he was trying to raise the stakes. And at this point, it just feels over the top. It feels so over the top. I really like this version of Davros in here. I think Julian Bleach is probably the best person outside of Michael Wisher to play Davros. I love the makeup on Davros here. That's the best Davros has ever looked. I like the human Doctor showing up and him being kind of a dark version of the 10th Doctor. I enjoyed that. I like Rose getting kind of her happy ending with him. And I do believe in the fan theory that maybe that's the Peter Cushing, a younger version of the Peter Cushing Doctor from the 60s films. Maybe that's an aged version of the Meta-Crisis Doctor. I love that theory. But yeah, I don't get into this one as much as some people do. It's good. I don't ever have really the urge to go back and watch it. I've seen it enough. Next on the list is Remembrance of the Daleks, and I'm going to get in trouble for this one. I know this one should rank higher for people. This is my least favorite of the 80s stories. I do think it's really good. As I mentioned when I was talking about Sylvester McCoy, the 7th Doctor, recently, I do think this one's really good. I do think it's overrated. It has some things I don't like about it. At the beginning, when the army's fighting the Dalek, he looks more like a remote-controlled Dalek. The way he comes out of the building and the way he's running around, it just seems like somebody remote controlling him from behind a building. I like the idea of the Dalek Civil War, of the Daleks being such racist and prejudiced that if you're not completely pure Dalek, they will kill you. That's a neat concept. So the idea of a Dalek Civil War is really cool to me. I don't like the little girl in this one, the little girl running around and everything that happens with her I don't care for. And a lot of times when you see her, it makes that little children's song theme. I forget which one it is. It's that little children's kid theme seems kind of silly. I don't really care for the incidental music in this one at all. I like that we get to see the hovering Dalek for the first time going up the stairs. That was pretty cool. I like the story overall. I like to see Ace beating up the Dalek with a baseball bat. I like how it ties in with the first Doctor. I like the Doctor's speech with Davros at the end, and I love how he manipulates and tricks them at the end. I love Sylvester McCoy here. Really the first time we get to see that darker, more sinister side of McCoy. So it's a really good story. I just don't care for it as much as a lot of people seem to. Next up is Victory of the Daleks, and yes, I'm placing Victory of the Daleks higher than Remembrance. Please don't kill me. I like Victory. I have an entire video called Why Victory of the Daleks Was Almost Awesome. You can check that out. It's a little ways down on my list. It's been done a little while back. But this one really is a weaker version of Power of the Daleks. It has a lot of good going on in it. I like the Daleks when they're manipulative and tricky, but still intelligent too. I mean, they're cunning, they're clever, and they're willing to pretend to be subservient if it furthers their goals. I like how they manipulate the Doctor into activating the progenitor. And it's really clever, and the Daleks really do win here. I kind of like that it's not one of those where, like Journey's End and so many others, where they get Deus Machina defeated at the end. The whole army gets blown up because the Doctor does one clever thing. It's a little played out. So I like the fact that the Daleks win, they trick the Doctor, and they get away. I used to have issues with the Paradigm Daleks, but I'm kind of over that now. The design doesn't really bother me anymore. Kind of wish we'd see more of it, to be honest. The part where it loses me is the World War II planes in space. I think that's silly and ridiculous. My suspension of disbelief just goes out the door right there. World War II planes flying around in space. Get them, Danny boy! That's the scene that just kind of ruins it for me. But other than that, I actually find the story fun. I like the interactions between Matt Smith, the 11th Doctor, and Churchill. I like the fact they seem like old chums who can joke around and chat with each other. Plus, I like the guy who plays Churchill in this. He's a good actor. So I enjoy Victory. I like it better than most. And the last one we'll talk about today, right bang in the middle, appropriately, is Destiny of the Daleks. Now, I have a video called The Most Mediocre Dalek Story Ever Made, and it was Destiny of the Daleks. So it's very fitting that it's right here in the middle. The main thing this one has going for me is Tom. Tom is great in this. Tom Baker is on par in this episode. The rest of the episode is mediocre. Lala Ward is mediocre like she usually is. Maybe a little better than usual. I don't really care for her. I don't like Romana too a whole lot. The set design is cheap and on a budget. You get the feeling they spent so much money. They had so much money allocated to doing the location work on City of Death and location work on Shada that the rest of the season suffered. And the set design for Skaro in this one is just pitifully bad. The Dalek voices are good. The Dalek designs are good. Davros is not so good. It's not the actor's fault that the mask doesn't fit him because Michael Wisher wasn't available. But I still find this the least interesting episode with Davros himself. He just doesn't really do a lot here. The Movellan design is bad. I just don't like the Movellan design here. I don't like how easy it is to knock them out and reprogram them. It seems too easy. I'm surprised this one ranks as high when there's so much I don't like about it. But Tom really brings it up. I love Tom in this story. I love his paper, rock, scissors bits. I enjoyed that. A lot of his conversations. Tom really brings this one up. This one really is mediocre. It deserves in the middle of the list. So that is where we're going to end part 1 of this list. We will continue on with part 2 probably tomorrow. Comment down below. I'd like to know what you think. How badly have I bungled this list, and how many of you are going to show up at my doorstep with torches and pitchforks? But comment down below. Maybe some of y'all agree with me about stuff being over or underrated. I'd always like to hear what you think. I always enjoy starting discussions between the people in the fandom. Other things to do, click the like button, click the subscribe button, click the bell for notifications. I've started a Patreon page. If you would like to contribute to that, you will find a link to that down below as well. But most importantly, stay safe out there, and thank you for watching.